Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money Channel. So another great night for Bitcoin, guys. Bitcoin is up now to 12,219 per BTC. And the dominance is at 68.6% market cap for the entire crypto space, 318.2 billion. This is the chart for Bitcoin, guys. I'm not going to dwell on this too much today. We are seeing higher highs in this micro trend right now. What we do need to see is for Bitcoin to reach this level of resistance, and it needs to maintain its price within these borders here. So between roughly 12,700 to about 13,002. So if we can get BTC up there, it did see another great few hours over the last few hours. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But ultimately what today's video is about is this. Shout out to Alex Cobb for streaming this live. So this is the Federal Reserve Governor, Lael Brainard, and her speech on the Faster Payments Initiative for Americans. She did state that Americans will be using something called FedNow. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. There's been a lot of chatter on Twitter about this. We're going to go through some of the points. Shout out to Alex Cobb. Thanks so much for streaming this. I will put his link in the description if you guys want to watch this. This from the New York Times, Fed wants workers to get paid faster. So this article kind of summarizes the things. Then I have the points that I thought were really important. So the Federal Reserve said on Monday that it will create a real-time payment system with the goal of making paychecks and money transfers available for use more immediately. This is for the people, folks. The move is aimed at narrowing the amount of time when money is deposited or transferred into an account and when it is available for use. The gap can span several hours or several days, putting individuals, particularly low-income Americans, at a disadvantage. Community groups, smaller banks, and advocates for low-wage earners have been calling for the Fed to limit the delay and to create a public sector option for real-time payments. But some in the banking industry, particularly large banks, have pushed back against the effort over concerns that the Fed's involvement will compete with their products and potentially crowd out private sector efforts. The round-the-clock service will be called FedNow and is expected to become available in 2023 or 2024. So long, so long. And so I'm going to go over a few of these points here. I just took some notes with regards to this. Lael Brainard on the faster payments. Some of the most important things that were discussed in this talk from Lael Brainard. The FedNow service is to ensure safe, secure payments available to all banks, no matter what size. Do you guys remember back when Brad Garlinghouse was mentioning the fact that there are two types of banks, Tier 1 banks and Tier 2 banks, and how Ripple is setting out to democratize those large payments, the banking system? He said that RippleNet will be able to help provide those Tier 2 banks to perform those cross-border transactions and to source liquidity through XRP without having to rely on the Tier 1 banks and using their Nostro and Vostro accounts worldwide. Well, Lael Brainard is saying the same thing with FedNow. The service is to ensure secure payments available to all banks, no matter what size. There is going to be an issue with liquidity, so immediate access to funds. So she says immediate access to funds. She doesn't say sourcing liquidity immediately, or maybe she does, but I put it here as an example. It struck me as something very, very obvious. Sourcing liquidity immediately. And there were 4 pillars that she talks about here. Number 1, equitable access to banks of all sizes nationwide along the private sector. Number 2, safety and faster payments. Number 3, increasing competition and neutral platform, i.e. a level playing field. She didn't say it straight out, but that's exactly what she's saying. Right now, there is not a level playing field for this competition, and what she is saying is that FedNow will create that level playing field. Number 4, real-time settlement service to move innovation and payments forward. Now, this is all very important. A lot of us are wondering, will they be using RippleNet? That's the big question. Will they be using XRP? Well, the discussion continues later in this video. Just stay with me here, guys, for a second. Interbank settlement and clearing lags behind other countries that have implemented real-time settlement systems, so we know a lot of other countries around the world are already doing this kind of thing, and the United States has been lagging. So far, we have had to rely on legacy systems. She doesn't mention SWIFT, but that's exactly who she's talking about, and so they're modernizing the system. Consumers and banks around the country expect real-time payments 24/7, 365. Something that Ripple does. The Federal Reserve will have to provide this vital support for everybody involved. But she keeps hitting that point home of meeting the needs and working with banks, large and small, to help them conduct business using faster payments and settlement services. Not only that, they do mention the fact that it is interoperable, making interoperability a high priority. And to me, this is the key. even if FedNow does not use RippleNet, it will have to be able to plug into RippleNet because RippleNet will be such an influential piece of technology around the rest of the world. And we know the US does not just conduct business within their borders. Okay, this is a global thing, guys. I saw this from Bank XRP on Twitter. The FedNow service will process and settle individual payments within seconds, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that was from their report here. He links a couple of PDFs. And guys, I always link all these articles and tweets in the description if you want to read further. A couple of things that we already went over. Some people here are wondering though, is this going to be Ripple? Is it not going to be Ripple? And so the fact that they are releasing in 2023 to 2024 makes it sound like it is probably something that they are creating on their own. But it will most definitely have to be interoperable with Ripple technology because there will be so much influence, in my opinion, with RippleNet products around the world. And so some people are pointing out this paragraph down here. The private sector has taken some steps to address limitations, including through the development of private sector infrastructure to move funds between banks in real time. Don't know if they are talking about Ripple there. The fact that they are releasing in 23-24 makes it sound like this is a long play for them. We all know that the technology exists today. They could tap into Ripple. They do have some concerns with a private entity having full control over this. Nevertheless, I don't think this is a problem. Some people are yelling here, this doesn't sound good for Ripple. Some people are like, oh, well, they'll just be using Ripple. There are lots of things happening here, and we really just have to look at the bigger picture, guys. Ripple does have a lot of great connections, and we already know how many banks they are partnered with. We already know what they will be doing. They are obviously not going to transfer every single dollar from point A to point B across the entire globe until the end of time. There will be other services there, so I don't think that this is a threat to Ripple whatsoever. I think the good news is that the government is modernizing, and the bigger thing I think you guys should be looking at is the fact of interoperability with Ripple and the fact that they want to make that a priority because the world is changing. You remember when Bearable Guy said this, and whether you are a Bearable Guy fan or not, it doesn't matter at this point. Ripple and XRP was that first splash in this space that is ultimately getting the ball rolling, the snowball effect of what we're starting to see today. Okay, SWIFT has now had to change their tune. The Federal Reserve is now changing their tune. Everybody around the world is realizing that money needs to be able to be sent across borders at the speed of light, and now Facebook Libra's jumping on board. Everybody is switching gears and making this happen, and guys, that can only be good for the ecosystem, really good for Ripple, because Ripple is interoperable, and they have already planned for this. Okay, we got Stuart XRP here on Twitter as well. How will the Fed service work? And so he highlights this. The FedNow service will process and settle individual payments within seconds, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So what does that mean going at the speed of light? How are they going to develop this? So now, could they be using RippleNet? Could they be at least licensing the technology, but maybe they would have a provision where they have full autonomy over certain aspects of it? I don't know the ins and outs of that kind of stuff, contracts and whatnot, but it's an interesting point to think of. And then some people down here getting into the conversation as well. Crypto Jedi mentions, based on this statement, it would seem that FedNow would have to be a service that allows other services like Ripple to plug into it. And I tend to agree with that comment. XRP Buddha makes a good point here. If you ask me, all countries are developing their own system which are compatible with ISO 20020. I think he means ISO 20022. And that is basically the interledger protocol. Look at the US. The dates match what the Fed said today. And yes, he does indeed correct himself down here. If you look at this, we have the countries on the left side here and when they will be migrating to the ISO 20022 system. And then so October 2020 to 2021, chats, I think that's Hong Kong, the US FedWire, 2022, 2023, Great Britain, 2022, 2023, the EU, 2021, globally, the SWIFT MT, MX, November 2021 to 2025. So the beginning of next decade is really going to start seeing a lot of this change, a lot of this shift. And I think that the Federal Reserve just wants to be, or rather has to start to become part of this system. I don't think they have a choice at this point. We also have DM Logic on Twitter. I'm the debate on Twitter. FedNow in 4 or 5 years. Interesting choice of name. If they really wanted FedNow, they would utilize Ripple's technology in XRP. I think it's clear they're trying to develop their own system. Tell me a substantive argument why I'm wrong. Oh, DM Logic, always trying to get people to think. It's important to think about these things, guys. You can't just go in blindly and not really think about the ins and outs. You know, this is why we have these channels and comment sections, and there are a lot of people out there with a lot of great ideas, and so it's important to share ideas. And, you know, when Lael Brainard isn't spelling it out, we're using Ripple or we're not using Ripple, it's interesting to think of the possibilities of what could be happening. So Jungle Inc. writes, you're not wrong. Everybody is developing their own system. The best will win. The key is the old system is being replaced, and I think that is really important. Again, guys, in my opinion, the snowball effect, Ripple and XRP got the ball rolling. There are no promises, no guarantees, but I like our chances of being included in the payment solution of the future. I completely agree. It's a big space. Ripple will make waves, and they already have started making waves, but nobody gets 100% of the market. That's just fact. FedNow, the confusion is in the name, LOL. The US is so far behind. In a few years, everybody will already have their own system. I feel like this was just to buy them time, to quiet the noise, so to speak. Ripple isn't ready for the Fed. MoneyGram will make the system tested and ready. It's a great point there by XRP Tweeter-pated, I believe his name is. Jungling says, if your business is making payments, you better make them fast and cheap and do so quickly. A new competitor is on the horizon. The incentive to sit in the pocket and operate out of the Stone Age was just vaporized. We got XRP Neo, 16, I suppose his name is now. XRP is meant to bridge currencies anyway. So I don't think this is as important as people make it. The US will likely create their own domestic instant payment system, which already exists in a lot of countries, and bridge outgoing transactions with XRP. That to me is exactly what I think is happening here, guys. The rest of the world, we're so focused, we're so laser focused on this and thinking, will the Fed be using Ripple? Will they not be using Ripple? At the end of the day, I don't really think it matters. I think this is kind of part of the levels of building. And the US has just been lagging, so this has been making news because the rest of the world is already doing this kind of thing, as XRP Anderson mentions here. Anyways, guys, there's a lot of great conversations going on Twitter right now with regards to the Fed coin, RippleNet. Will they be using Ripple technology? Will they not be using Ripple technology? Does it matter? Because Ripple is already interoperable, and the fact that the world is moving quickly is what's really important. Biggest takeaways from this, I think, are XRP Anderson's tweet here. XRP is meant to bridge currencies anyway, so I don't think this is as important as people make it. The US will likely create their own domestic instant payment system, which already exists in a lot of countries, and bridge outgoing transactions with XRP. That, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways here. Also, the fact that we are already seeing this kind of thing happening here with regards to, no, it wasn't there. Where was it now? I believe Stewart XRP, right. It was this image here by XRP Buddha saying that everybody is going to be fully ISO 20022 compatible by the beginning of the next decade, so the 2020s. That is also important. Swift also making the move there. And guys, Ripple getting the ball rolling. XRP being that catalyst, Ripple being on the radar for a good few years before any of this really took place. We are building that infrastructure out to a more seamless world of cross-border transactions, guys. And in the meantime, I've got my eye on Bitcoin right now hovering at 12,255. Will the spec market pick up? Will we see altcoins rise in price in tandem with Bitcoin as it soars? We see the Bitcoin dominance is at 68.6. What will happen when it hits 70? I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.